The Serpent Speaketh by ozjthomas. April 15th, 2012. I'm going to change the world. Not today, of course, but soon. The Perfect City project is coming along nicely at work. I am always thinking of new ideas to make it even better, to make it live up to its namesake. I've been working on it for the last dozen years as the head graphic designer and coordinator. Electrical systems, transportation systems, agriculture, entertainment, and more all need to be considered. There's a lot to think about when designing a completely new world. Today, however, I'm taking a break. I'm on my way home from church, about to visit my younger brother Clyde with his weekly supply of bread, fruit, milk, toilet paper, and other household goods. Visiting him is a chore, but I do it because he has a mental illness and is in need, and it reminds me why I'm designing the perfect city in the first place. I find myself at my younger brother's apartment in the ghetto with bags and bags of groceries, lost in thought because I really hate it here. You know, my life is good, I gotta admit. My job at McKinnon's, the graphic design firm, is difficult but rewarding. I have a girlfriend who is too good for me, and even though I'm almost 30 and don't have kids, I hope to one day. My brother Clyde, on the other hand, he doesn't have a good life. I go out of my way to take him to barbecues or to go to the movies because I figure that's what I have to do as a brother. But he is just perpetually glum and delusional. Sometimes I take him places and he just drags his feet and tells me how pointless it is, and sometimes he runs away and I have to find him. He's a pain in the ass, and even though I know it isn't his fault, it's really frustrating, and I don't know why I do this sometimes. No, that's not true. I know why I do it. I'm the older brother, and it's my job to look after Clyde. I had hoped that after a while he would figure things out, the way I figured things out. Stop living in denial and telling me that I'm the one with mental illness. I thought that after a while he would grow out of it, grow up and build a life. I know in some ways I am lucky, but I worked really hard to get where I am. Back before he graduated high school, he started becoming more and more immersed in his neuroses and fantasies. Eventually, he couldn't cope with day-to-day life, and everything just fell apart. It was sad. He went from meager subsistence to homelessness, abusing drugs along the way until I found him and set him up in the best little shack I could find. And while I did this, I positioned myself to be the head of the Perfect City project, so that others would never have to suffer like he had suffered. I know, this is all coming off like I resent him, and I'm a martyr, but I really do want what's best for him, and I want to change the world one day. I carry the plastic bags down the path to the broken down shack that I rent for him. I cringe, readying my nose for the smell I know will soon be assaulting my senses when I open that door. I knock, and as usual there's no reply, so I open the door slowly. All the shades are drawn, and the stench, which is a mixture of stale air, dirty laundry, urine, and decaying food, greet me. It isn't as terrible as it had been in the past, but it is far, far from pleasant. I say hello to the air, and since I don't see my brother, I just quietly bring the bags in and place them on the kitchen counter. I check the refrigerator for stale food items, throwing out some old yogurt, moldy cheese, and then put the cold things where they belong. I check his shelves and throw away can after can of expired soup. I am about to check the garbage when I notice him huddled in the corner, burning a candle and staring intensely at something. Something I cannot see. "Clyde," I say, walking towards him. He doesn't move. He doesn't respond. This isn't unusual for him. He likes to spend his life in his own little world. I'm quite used to coming in, talking to the air, checking his mail, making sure he has food, and then leaving, not getting a word of response from my queries about how his days are going. If he does say something, usually it's about how I'm the crazy one. I don't let it bother me. Clyde, I repeat, walking toward him and crouching next to where he is sitting on a tattered, old gray lazy boy, the stench of human sweat and poor sanitation becoming increasingly evident the closer I come. Are you doing okay? I ask, surveying the scene. I notice the cold coffee sitting next to him, so I surmise that he has been sitting where he is for at least a few hours, perhaps even a few days. But I also notice a steady decline of food stock and toilet paper, so I know he's at least performing some basic functions, even if he is rather slim and isn't winning any awards for being sanitary or social. Every now and then I'll see him and we'll talk about love and life, and it's like the old Clyde that I used to know, the one I used to be the big brother to, the one I seem to be waiting for. I'm about to head out the door when Clyde starts talking out of the blue. It's good to see you, Clyde says, looking up from his meditation, and I wish I could stay a little bit longer with you. I smile, tell my brother, me too, but I have work to do for McKinnon's. Clyde laughs. You mean I have work to do? I smile. Of course, I say. Clyde has the delusion that he has my job, and I just let him go with it sometimes. Clyde just starts babbling on. I nod and say yes and of course, because I know he never makes sense. I interrupt him mid-sentence and tell him that I'll pick up more cans of tomato soup. It's good to see you again, brother, I say, as I walk back to the kitchen and collect the garbage that is strewn about. I pick up the cans on the floor and tell my brother that he needs to be more careful. Things aren't always what they appear to be, Clyde says. Okay, I reply, not really sure what to say to his seemingly random turn of phrase. I feign some cheerfulness, and when my head is turned, I roll my eyes. I'll see you next week. I walk out the door, tap my cell phone to write a reminder to pick up more garbage bags and tomato soup, and then throw the garbage in the back of the truck and drive away. I think some more about the perfect city as I drive. A place where Clyde can thrive, and not just a place where he can watch TV and play bingo and have someone treat him like an invalid. I want him to live in the real world. One day it'll happen, and when that happens, the world will change. I look out at the road thinking how normal my life is. I'm 30, building a 401k. I eat hamburgers or chicken for dinner, and I watch the same sitcoms as everybody else. I'm just your ordinary, everyday Joe. The only thing that scares me is my brother Clyde, because deep down, I know I'm not that different than him. I'm lost in thought when I look down and see my phone ringing. It's Summer. How are you doing, sweetie? I ask her. I'm just here with Clyde, she responds. Where are you? I sigh because I love hearing the sound of her voice even after all these years. She starts asking me if I need to be picked up, but I laugh, reminding her that I'm just driving the truck. She laughs. Of course. Are you coming back? I tell her I'm on my way back and that I saw Clyde and am on my way home. She laughs, but there's a nervousness in her voice. I ask if she's mad, but she reassures me that she's not. I tell her that Clyde told me that he was the one who had the graphic design job again, and she laughs some more. Isn't he ridiculous? I ask. She hems and haws and says, don't make me say anything. I like both you and your brother. I change the topic. I'm stopping at the grocery store. I just need to pick up some tomato soup and a few other things. She makes a small sound, then asks me to pick up some mustard. I tell her it's no problem and pull into the Wise parking lot, tell her goodbye and hang up. I look around realizing that this Wise is the one down the road near where I grew up. I guess I got so lost in thought that I just kept driving. Oh well, I say to myself, not thinking too much about it as I walk into the store. The sauerkraut, cheese, mustard, and tomato soup are all just where they were 10 years ago. I grab some trash bags and a bag of peanut M&Ms and I head to the check stands. I'm not sure as I approach, but pretty soon I'm certain that it's Joan from my high school class. Joan smiles and says hello, not recognizing me, grabs a plastic bag while she quickly runs my items over the scanner, blandly. "How are you doing today?" she asks. "The M&Ms are for my niece," I lie, smiling back. "Of course they are," she says knowingly, both of us knowing that it's all a lie. She then looks at me again for a second, then goes back to scanning. She scans all of the items before asking me, "You're Daryl, aren't you?" "It's good to see you again, Joan," I say. She smiles. I smile as well. She looks me up and down and says, "You look good. How long has it been?" 10 years. Maybe 12, I tell her. I blush and tell her that I'm dating Summer. "Is that right?" she asks. I tell her that it is. She asks me about my brother Clyde, and I tell her that he's gotten sick since high school. She nods her head. "That's too bad," she says. "It is, yeah," I say, as I reach into my pockets and give her a 20. She says thank you, and I'm about to go when she covers my hand in hers. "We should catch up sometime," she says. I kind of freak out a little, say a few words that were probably English, grab the receipt, and leave the store. I tell myself that I shouldn't have been nervous, that everything is fine, but something about the way she grabbed my hand just wasn't right. As I'm walking out to my truck, I hear her yelling to me, "It's nice to see you again." I shut her out and keep walking. I fire up the old Chevy pickup. It roars for a second. I pump the gas and then drive straight home. What we are told life will be like. People helping each other, working together, at one with nature, growing stronger every day, while building a future with the people you love. Finding peace both in solitude and connection, until one day everything comes together and you pass on in peace. What life is really like. An arduous journey undertaken alone, cut off from others while working a soulless job. Becoming weaker every day, watching the world around you decay as you do. Days are spent in fear. You reach out for meaning, for friendship, only to be disappointed, finding solace in gluttony, hedonism, and sloth. And then one day, you can no longer fight this war of attrition called life, and you pass away, unloved and unremembered. Daryl's Dream Journal, Entry 1. I find myself walking down a cobblestone path in the garden. Rows of violets, daylilies, and daisies sweep upon my hands. It's utterly enchanting and perfect. The sun is shining, the air is warm and mild, and a slight breeze wafts the scent of lavender into the air. I am happy because I am home. This is the garden at the farm where I grew up. Everything seems perfect and familiar. I am at peace and perfectly content. I can't help but smile as I walk along. I come to a fork in the path and take the right path without any thought or hesitation. It just feels like the natural thing to do. I walk for a while. I'm not sure how long because I am so lost in this happy state of mind. I cross a beautiful grassy field, hike up a small hill, down into a low gap, across several streams, and then I come upon a snake. This isn't just any snake, something in my mind tells me. I tap the ground with a stick and grin reflexively, hoping the snake will move on. but instead she simply turns herself toward me and rears up to look with her bright yellow eyes, whipping her tongue out to sense me better. A slight sense of fear overcomes me, so I stand like a statue for a few seconds, then watch the snake continue on, away from the path. I start to walk forward on the path, but then look back toward the snake. I should be heading back to the farmhouse. I should be going back to comfort and family. But something is telling me to follow the snake against all better judgment. I don't have any logical reason for it, but I follow the snake. Leaving the path, I follow her across the flower-filled fields, among trees and berries, through briars and nettles and poison oak and ivy thickets. The snake sashays slowly, never looking back, but with a slow determination that tells me that she wants me to follow her. Eventually, she stops under a huge old maple and looks up. I look up too, and the tree seems to reach all the way into the sky, a twisted and gnarled thing. It seems to be an old tree, older than time. I approach the tree and start to climb. As I ascend into the tree, I get excited and start to tremble, sensing that there is something at the top waiting for me. As I get closer to the top, my hands start trembling. I climb for what must be hours. I look down and can barely make out the place where I was before. All I see below me is a gray mass of clouds and a ghostly wind sweeping beneath me. I suddenly feel a wrenching in my gut and a sense of vertigo overwhelms me. I reach up to take the next branch and the branch snaps. I slip, then tumble, and fall. I seem to fall for minutes. I'm still falling when I wake up, but I am reassured when I realize that I am home. Everything is fine, and I am safe. April 29th, 2012. It takes me a few minutes when I wake up to remember where I am, and to feel certain that this world is the real world. The dream I had just been dreaming was so vivid, it felt real. Almost. When I was younger, I lived on a farm, and we had a beautiful and immaculate garden. My brother Clyde and I would climb trees and play for hours, and together we would go on adventures. There were snakes in our garden back then, an animal we were both petrified of. I realized that all of these memories must be what caused the dream to appear. I try not to think about it and remember what I have to do today. But as I am remembering all of this, I'm also reminded of an old series of stories that Clyde and I would work on back then. Drawings and words that we called the old gods. Lost in this reverie, I search through my drawers and finally find the yellowing book at the bottom of my dresser. Opening the old gods is like taking a step back to childhood, and I am overwhelmed by page after page of story. It's like I'm reading through my subconscious as I flip through the pages, glancing at myths and stories of heroes and gods, until I come across a page on the serpent. The serpent was one of the first animals ever created. It pulsed with the rhythm of life and could not be killed, unlike some of the other animals. I laughed and thought of my dream and wonder what we must have been thinking as children. Summer finds me on the edge of my bed and asks me what I'm doing. Nothing, sweetie. Just looking at some old things, I tell her. She smiles and nods that she understands, but tells me that I have to get ready. I tell her that it can wait, and, in her way, closes the book gently. Not wanting to anger her, I put on my shirt and walk down the hall for breakfast. Summer scoops coffee into the coffee maker and asks me if I want cereal. As the machine gurgles and spits, I tell her that would be good, and she pours some into a bowl and distractedly sets it on the counter. I tell her thanks, and she nods. I look across the table and notice Clyde there. "When did he get here?" I ask. "Don't be silly," she laughs. "Clyde has been here for a while." Yes," I say, trying to remember when Clyde came over and not remembering a thing. Summer hands me a bowl of cornflakes and I dig in. I notice that she looks lost in thought, and so I ask her if she's annoyed at me. She assures me that she's not, that she's just tired. But she barely pays attention to me as she goes about making her own breakfast of cereal and sliced banana. I just have a lot on my mind, she tells me when she sits down, handing a cup of coffee to both me and Clyde. I ask her why she is distracted, mentioning how busy Clyde is and how I have an appointment to go to. After work, you mean? I ask. She doesn't say anything for a moment, then tells me not to worry about work and that she's going to drive me to my appointment after breakfast. I just nod, finish my breakfast, and grab my coat. "Where are you going?" she asks. "To work," I say, smiling. "I told you I'd drive you," she says. I nod, tell her I love her, wave to Clyde, who just grumbles at me, and I head out the door. She tells me to be careful and that when I get home, Frank will be here. "Who's Frank?" I ask, honestly perplexed.